Hi everyone, my name is Antony Cummins and I'm a historical researcher and author. And today we're going to talk about Fujibayashi Yasutake. And if you want to read Fujibayashi Sensei's work, it's here in Book of Ninja. And basically, if you even have any sniff of liking of ninjutsu, if you've not read the Bansenshukai, you're way behind. So the links are down below for the book, so go get a copy and keep up to date with ninjutsu. Right, Fujibayashi Yasutake. Right, possibly one of the most famous ninja there ever was, not because of his ninjutsu, but because of his writing called the Bansenshukai. Now I'll put the kanji here. Bansenshukai, it means a myriad of rivers coming into one ocean. And the idea is that all the rivers from all the mountains gather together into one big river and then they move into the ocean. And that is basically a way of explaining what his book is about. His book is multiple ninja traditions. So it's not Iga ninjutsu, it's not just Koka ninjutsu, it's not just Kusunoki, it's everything he could possibly find on ninjutsu brought together and put in. And it's a thick book. It's over 550 pages in the English language. So, which took a long time to translate. It's like, So, it's a lot of information about ninjutsu. So what do we know about Fujibayashi? We, again, probably born in around the 1630s because he's writing in the 1670s. In fact, this book is written in 1676 or finished in 1676. I presume it took him quite a few years to write. So you're looking at him being 35 at least by the time he's writing it. So he could be a little bit older. He's actually called, he's something called Koshi, which means old samurai. That doesn't mean he is old. It means, what it means, he's from a samurai family. But they have lost their status. This is very important, guys, something you have to remember. Sengoku period, shinobi, absolutely, there's many in the samurai class. But and the Iga and Koka people, Iga is totally taken over by Nobunaga. And the samurai families are displaced. If you're from England, it's exactly the same as the Anglo-Saxon, the loss of the Anglo-Saxon nobility. Because the Normans come over, poof, get rid of the Anglo-Saxon nobility, they're displaced, and then there's new overlords who speak French. Yep. Same thing is, you've got Iga, you've got they're all independent families, they own independent farms, and the next thing, Nobunaga comes over, wipes them out, he puts a guy called Toda in charge, and he then puts his own samurai in charge, and the Igamono are displaced. Yep. So, and then the Kokomono on the other side, once war is finished, they're like, it's not that they're displaced, but they can no longer afford to maintain such, a lifestyle of training in ninjutsu because they're not getting cash anymore from the wars. So remember, the ninjas from Koka and Iga were hiding all over the place. They're no longer getting the cash from the wars, so they're declining very, very slowly, or maybe quickly, but they're declining and money is going and they can no longer keep up with it. So Koshi means old samurai family, a family that used to be samurai, they are no longer samurai. And I'm of the understanding that they could carry a long sword, and they could, literally be in this half samurai world. So he very proudly writes Koshi at the end of it, meaning even though he's not samurai now, his ancestors were samurai, which gives him certain rights. So, the reason I'm talking about Iga and Koka is because this is the world he grew up in. He grew up in a world where his grandparents were absolutely warring periods, Koka, Igamono, and he's actually from Iga. He's not from Koka. We know he's from Iga. He's on the borderland between the two, but he's definitely from Iga. So, he's growing up, he's, hearing the grumblings of his grandfather saying, we used to be in charge of this place, 2 generations ago we owned all this land. You would have owned it as well, Fujibayashi, but, times have gone. So obviously, he's got that idea of, they've been displaced. Also, we do know that ninjutsu at the time was on the decline. There are many families, Iga and Koka, and as I said before, they could no longer afford to keep it up. They have to turn to farming. So we then get a document that tells us about Iga and Koka from mid-1600s, and it says the people there do farming in the day and ninjutsu at night. Now this is one of the reasons where we get the farmer ninja myth, because everyone's like, oh, this document from the 1600s says they farm in the day and that they do ninjutsu in the afternoon and night. Yeah, that's all well and good at that time, but before that they were in charge. This is because they declined. And if you go after the date of that document, they're further in decline, where families were giving up ninjutsu. They just gave it up. They were like, we have to farm. We are no longer samurai. We're koshi. We're old. Being koshi means you don't get that money coming every month or every year saying, you know, here's your cash for the year, for the family. That's not happening anymore. They have to survive, or maybe on a smaller amount, but they just can't keep up military training, which is expensive. So what you do is you've got a massive decline in all the ninjutsu of Iga and Koga. And Fujibayashi is clearly going, we're losing this. We are losing this. So he sets out on a monumental task of going and collecting all the ninjutsu he can. So some of the people say, so some of the academics say, oh, he's taken that from that book and he's taken that from that document. We can see where it is. And he clearly takes from the Gunpo Jyoshu. We know this, and the Gunpo Jyoshu is a published book by the time he is there. So he's actually going to the shop, buying a published book, and writing a secret ninja manual from a book everybody can buy in woodblock print. But that's not so bad, because if you look at it in context, he's actually getting secret documents, he's getting family traditions, he's also getting people's scrolls, and then he's getting anything that's published. He's basically gone, he's not being in the future, he's not looking back and saying, oh, you know, academics in the future might think this is bad because I'm taking from published books. He has basically gone, ninjutsu is failing. I'm going to collect everything. No matter where it's from, I'm collecting it. And he does, and he puts it into a myriad of rivers coming into one ocean, and he writes it all down. On top of that, he puts lots of Chinese quotes in, like everybody does back then, to say, hey guys, I can read Chinese. So, you know, or basically Kanban, which is like a mock Chinese, which is a bit of a horrible phrase, but it's a difficult language, a difficult dialect, if you will. But it's half Chinese, if you like. So he's educated, he's well educated. However, I think possibly he was doing it for cash, because it always says Kuden here, Kuden there, Kuden there. But I've double-crossed this against, I've analysed this against different manuals, and there's not that much Kuden. And I've actually got a copy of the Bansenshukai with the Kuden written in, and one day we will publish the Kuden. And it's not that interesting, it's not that amazing. It's a case of, I think he was doing it for cash. I think he set up his own school. So he's let this record out, this Bansenshukai, and then probably people have hand copied it and copied it and copied it, and then they've probably come to him because he's now famous in Koga and Iga. He's now famous, and they've clearly said Fujibayashi Sensei, and he's probably getting cash from students. Which, to be honest, fair play to him. Why not? He realised the lords are no longer paying for it. He wrote this document, he did the research, and probably opened a school under it, and gave him, they gave him some cash. So, but however, what you do find is a little bit of a pushback on this. It gets a little bit of aggression back towards him, because, and now I have not seen this document, but I've spoke to Kawakami Sensei, and I've spoke to Ikeda Sensei, and they both have said they've seen a document where Igamono complain and say Fujibayashi can't even make a torch properly. We've seen him trying to light it. But we think this is probably propaganda, because he's gone and remember, not everybody in Iga and Koga are ninja. Not everybody in Iga and Koga, but now all of their secrets are open to the general public. Literally, you can just go see copies of the Bansenshukai. Well, I'll get onto that in a minute. So apparently they slag him off. Yeah. So there's this idea that they say, oh, he's an idiot, Fujibayashi. But to me, even if he could or couldn't light the torch, or if he couldn't construct it, he copied it. And maybe he was not an experienced shinobi. Maybe he was, we don't know. But he copied it all down and he collected it all. However, I would go with the idea that he was experienced. The way he talks is like, oh, you need experience to do this. And he's like, when you're doing this with a lock, take it out. So I think it was just propaganda from the other Igamono who were just a bit annoyed. Now, the Bansenshukai can either be called Bansenshukai or Mansenshukai. Now, I have seen phonetic markers that say Mansenshukai, so probably it's better called Mansenshukai. However, Kawakami Sensei again says he has seen Bansenshukai and Mansenshukai on the same document. So, but he's yet to show that, so I have not seen it. So let's hope. So we've got this idea that now you're in Iga and Koga, and we've got a guy who's had the ability to ask everyone and do this. Now how do we know the Bansenshukai was, free for everyone? He says at the beginning, he says, this is now public and this is now, he says, I have given this out basically. And he says, I have put the correct mind chapters, because if you don't get the correct mind chapters in your head and you don't process them, you will just understand robbery and thievery, because that's what ninjutsu is, unless you put it there, because it's meant to be for the service of the Lord. So you see, we've got this idea that, he's let it out to the public, or people have paid him to copy it and things like that. We don't know. So, but what we do know, and why we know the Bansenshukai is absolutely real ninjutsu, is because it's passed around Iga and Koga. There are tons of copies of it around Iga and Koga, where people have got it in different families. The O'Hara family, this family have got it there. And if you go to the Koga Ninja house, they've got mini manual copies, extracts of it. I found extracts in different places. It's basically the then go-to manual of ninjutsu for Iga and Koga. And to add to that, Koga continually try to get back their prestige as samurai and say we need to be hired by the Tokugawa shogunate, and they keep going to the shogunate 3 times, I think they go. And on the 3rd time or the 2nd time, I'm not quite sure, they take with them a copy of the Bansenshukai and they say, here is our teachings. Now, it's not their teachings, they're the O'Hara family, and basically they just copied out the Bansenshukai and added the word Koga, saying of Koga, meaning Koga manual, but it's not, it's from Iga, and he mentions Iga far more than Koga. And so basically, but if you look into that, what it means is that they were so proud of the Bansenshukai, they were so centered on its professionalism and what it contained, that they presented it to the shogun of all Japan as their license as ninjutsu practitioners, yeah? Remember, Fujibayashi never thought it would go to the shogun. It's not written to go to the shogun, but 100, 120 years later, it totally gets to the shogun. Now, the shogun doesn't read it. It's actually a bureaucrat of his who takes it, and they refuse them because basically they just turned up and said, give us control again. And they're like, no, the samurai we put in place 100 years ago is doing a fine job, for Iga. And in Koga, they're sort of like, let us, they actually say, those 3 families who turn up say, we want control of everything. And they're saying, no, the people who are in place are fine. And no, you're not getting any money for ninjutsu because we don't need them. And in fact, in Edo itself, they were getting the ninjas less and less and less. But the point is that they thought the Bansenshukai was good enough to represent all of Koga ninjutsu. Yep, they thought it was good enough. So it was good enough for real family descendants who were still practicing ninjutsu. It's definitely good enough for us guys, without a shadow of a doubt. So what we have is a guy who was brought up in the shadow of a shift in not aristocracy, but in the military class. His family were displaced and replaced by another family, and he's then annoyed at this. He sees shinobi are on the decline, so he writes about them and records it, and he actually records, which is pretty much the best ninja manual ever is. It's not my favourite, but you can't take it away from him. He wrote the most concrete ninja manual that there's ever been. So if you're interested in ninjutsu and you want to know about it, obviously Book of Ninja, and Fujibayashi Sensei did something that no other person did, and basically put all of the ninjutsu we could find from anywhere together for us to read and for basically history to enjoy. I hope you enjoyed that, guys. My name's Antony Cummins. Subscribe, join me on Instagram and keep up to date, and let me know what you think about Fujibayashi Sensei.